Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Create and Consume, a podcast about what we make, watch, and buy in the era of digital content. I'm your host, Austen Tosone. January can be an exciting month. The start of the year often means a new chance to reinvent yourself, get goals accomplished, or let go of things that didn't quite work out for you so well in the previous year. However, for many people, January is, one of the longest and coldest months of the year. It really is just the beginning of winter, even though it seems like we should be close to spring. And for that reason, this is usually the time of year where I personally, and probably a lot of you too, start to experience like the winter blues. And once the Christmas lights come down and the merriment fades away, and you're like, okay, wait, what do I actually want to do with myself and my life this year? It can be a little intimidating and overwhelming. Not to mention, it's usually cold, it's usually dark. And it's just hard to find ways to thrive, but that's why I wanted to create today's episode to put together this winter survival guide for you all so that we can try to find ways to thrive amidst the darkness, amidst the coldness, and amidst just the general weirdness of the state of the world sometimes, too. Before I get into this winter survival guide, let's do a little create and consume. So, one thing that I was creating this past week was my pitch emails for New York Fashion Week. And I actually talked all about this in depth in last week's episode, so I won't go too far into details. I took a look at the Fashion Week calendar and selected the shows and presentations that I'm interested in attending. I tracked down the PR contacts for those brands and I sent out my pitch emails. I actually wrote the emails over the weekend and scheduled them out on Sunday. It's now Monday as I'm recording this episode, and I was able to get those scheduled emails out. And I've already gotten some replies back, some yeses, some let me look and see, a couple of bounce backs with a different email to reach out to, which I've made note of in my updated spreadsheet, and of course, a handful who can't accommodate me this season. But that is really why we pitch and reach out in the first place. I do have a photo shoot session scheduled with Karia to shoot some street style content for outfits I'm planning to wear to Fashion Week shows, and I do already have one show confirmed, so I definitely want to aim to put together a vlog of New York Fashion Week for my YouTube channel, so stay tuned for more details about that. And then as far as what I'm consuming this week, well, first of all, I watched some really stressful football games yesterday. I am so upset about the two teams headed to the Super Bowl this year. I may not watch. And I'm upset because, number one, the Eagles, if you don't know, are the New York Giants division rival. That is my team that unfortunately has not had a very prosperous season, I wouldn't say. So they were not even in contention for the playoffs. And there's an extra dagger in the heart because one of our star players from the last few years was actually traded to the Eagles this year and is having an amazing season. So it's just like, ugh, it's an extra gut punch if you know. And then, as much as I love Taylor Swift and I'm a fan of her and Travis, you just can't help but be annoyed by the Chiefs. They are annoyingly good. They often get very lucky. I'm putting lucky in quotation marks hidden under my desk if you're watching me on YouTube. And God, there were just so many terrible calls in that game against the Bills. And I feel so heartbroken that the Bills aren't going to get to go to the Super Bowl this year. So, as a Giants fan and a fan of football in general, this is such a disappointing mashup for me. It's not who I wanted to see play, and I couldn't care less who wins, really. So, I guess in a sense, I also consumed that. But the thing that I wrote in my podcast outline that I wanted to tell you I consumed this week that I did like is a book. It's called Good Material by Dolly Alderton. If you listened to my What I Want to Read in 2025 episode, I did mention this one. If you missed that episode, the gist of this one was that the book followed a couple in the midst of their breakup. So they broke up like right at the beginning of the book, and you kind of see the aftermath of this breakup. And I thought it was really interesting. It was mainly told from the guy's point of view, and he is a comedian. So hence, Good Material was kind of the moniker that appeared throughout the book. I was definitely skeptical about reading the book from the guy's point of view. I didn't know if it would be overly whiny or like, kind of missing the point. But I think that the way it was told was really smart. I enjoyed the writing. I thought it moved very quickly. And you do also get the other person's point of view at the end of the book, which I thought really like tied everything together. So I enjoyed reading this one quite a lot. I gave it 5 stars. Let's move on to the topic of today's episode, which is this winter survival guide. And surviving winter any year is one thing. For some reason, this 2025 has been off to a particularly rocky start as far as news goes, as far as what's going on out there in the world in the United States. And I'm trying to do my best between staying informed and taking action and also not getting too caught up in things and letting exterior sources, impede my own personal progress and my day-to-day routine. It's really hard to do, especially when you're inundated with news on social media and just, even on YouTube, and when you check things on your computer, it's really hard to escape it all. I know it's not an easy time for a lot of people right now. Some people are dealing with natural disasters like wildfires. Other people are worried about their rights being protected. And I just want to say I'm sending like a big virtual hug out to everybody. Again, I really want my content to be a place where you can come and be comfortable and kind of unplug and not think about things, but it just feels like it's worth acknowledging and just saying that I feel like it's been a little bit of a rough start to 2025. So if you are in the same boat, if you're feeling that way, I totally understand. Sending virtual hugs. And I really hope this winter survival guide can help at least make parts of your day and your personal home life a little bit better. And we're trying to put a little bit of a fun, cute moment on this as well. There's no reason not to make everything a cute moment if you can, right? I have a bunch of fun ideas and tips in this outline, and I want to start actually with beauty because to me, beauty is a form of self care that is a truly physical form of self care. It's something that usually doesn't take all that long to do. It's something you can figure out a way to do in an affordable sense, you can do at home. And even if you take 5 minutes out of your day to do something on this list, I actually do feel like it can make a big difference. Even on days where I am so tired and exhausted and just not feeling my best, paying attention to beauty and incorporating little things into my day, even if it's just slapping a moisturizer on my skin before going to bed, are actually still really important to me and things that I do try to integrate into my routine. And when it comes to winter, I think that it's really easy to feel the winter uglies. If you have heard that TikTok term before, it's really easy to just feel like you're burrowed inside your house all day and you're just not looking your best, or your skin is freaking out because of the changing temperatures. And that's all totally understandable. And my solution to this is to make what you can of your evening skincare routine or find a little moment in your day to just really sink into the marinating phase, if you will. The marinating phase is like putting on some eye masks or doing a face mask or just treating yourself to, it could even be something as simple as those little shower steamers that you throw in the shower and it sends a scent up through the steam of your shower. Just do something to make your day like 2% better on the beauty front. I wrote down a handful of products here that I like to reach for if I'm trying to give myself that at-home spa experience. One of them is the Wander Beauty Baggage Flame Eye Masks. I actually wore these yesterday because I just, could feel that puffiness. I felt the under eye bags coming in. And there is something about the under eye masks that just make me feel like I am doing a full treatment, even though what I'm doing is putting them on my face, waiting for 15 minutes, and then removing them. I really do like these Wander ones, though. They do come in gold and rose gold. I used the rose gold yesterday. That to me is the easiest, quickest one to do. But if you're ready to commit to more of a full face mask, I do like the Rael Miracle Clear Purifying Clay Mask. It comes in a tube. They actually make a lot of great sheet masks and things like that as well. But this is my favorite clay mask that I've tried recently. And I like that it's in a tube. Sometimes when they're in a jar, I just find it really hard to dole out the right amount without it getting all over the place. And this one to me just makes more sense. I also really like the Innisfree sheet masks. I actually have one here with me if you're watching on YouTube. This is the rose one, and this one you leave on for 10 to 20 minutes. I also sometimes will put one of these on and use my ice roller over top of it if you are feeling puffy or anything along those lines. That truly is something that makes me feel like I am going to emerge from the sheet mask on the other side and look like $1,000,000. Other winter essentials, I have one on my desk right now, the Laneige Lip Sleeping Mask. This is a year-round essential for me, but during the winter, that's when I'm really making a dent in this jar. And it is such a thick and nourishing lip mask, and I really like the berry flavor. That one's my favorite. Is flavor the right word for this, or is it scent or version? The very version? Wow, I can't even speak right now. And I've had my 2 cups of coffee, so that's not a good sign for me for the rest of the day. Another product that I genuinely feel comfortable recommending to pretty much everybody is the First Aid Beauty Ultra Repair Cream. This is the largest jar of the thickest moisturizer that you have ever seen in your entire life. And what I love about this is every time I open a new jar, it literally takes me over a full year to go through the thing because a little goes a long way and you don't need too much product. And the other reason I like it is because this brand is great for all different skin types, and especially if you have sensitive skin. It's a fragrance-free moisturizer, so we love that. And like I said, a little really does go a long way, so it's great for the value. Another product for me that is a winter skincare essential is a good face oil. Face oil you actually apply as the last step in your nighttime skincare routine because the oil will really lock everything in and help all of the products that you had before just kind of get sealed and make sure that they really can do their thing and get absorbed. I really like the Pixie Beauty Jasmine Oil Blend. That's probably my top one just because it also has that really soothing jasmine scent, which I prefer to lavender, I'm going to say. I'm going to make that declaration right now. Don't come for me. I might change my mind at some point. But to me, that jasmine just has a slightly different but still calming scent to it that I feel like has not been overdone at this point. I think for me, whenever I see something calming, I just assume it's going to be lavender. So I like the jasmine there. I also have been using the Elemis Skin Food Facial Oil that I got in PR. I'm going to say pick the Pixie one up though, just because this one that I'm testing now, I really like it, but it's a small bottle and I think it's $70. So if you want the more affordable option, grab the Pixie for sure. And also one thing that I like to do to like set the scene and pretend I'm in a spa, even when I'm not, is to grab a headband that makes me feel like I'm in the spa. Because when you go to get a facial, they do pull your hair back, they put a headband on. I kind of like to apply the same concept at home. So obviously, there are headbands like the Get Ready With Me headband from Versed, or even on Amazon, they have these, terry cloth stretchy headbands that also kind of give the same energy. It does not need to be expensive whatsoever. It should be one that you don't mind getting, a little bit of clay mask on or a little bit of facial oil on, and that ideally is machine washable. But yeah, sometimes just throwing on that headband can make for a really nice, like, that's your signal to yourself, okay, we're at the at home spa now and the rest of the outside world doesn't exist. You could even use a headband like the one I'm wearing right now. I'm wearing it to go with my outfit and allegedly be cute. But this is just a stretchy white headband if you're not watching on YouTube from Amazon. But I will link all of these products that I just mentioned in the show notes. Okay, related in the beauty space, although not really on the skincare front, hand cream. I know that someone at some point gave you a mini hand cream or you have one laying around somewhere. And these are the 3 places I like to keep my mini hand cream, so they're always within reach when I need them. So number 1 is at my desk, which I'm actually doing a bad job right now because I don't have one at my desk. And now that I have mentioned hand cream, I can't stop thinking about how dry my hands feel. Number 2 is in my purse, and I usually just keep this in my purse that I keep by the door ready to go so that if I am switching bags, it's right there for me to throw in and include, because even if you don't need hand cream while you're out and about, someone might, and you just never know. And then the third place is right by my bed. So I do keep a hand cream on my nightstand. So at the end of the night when I get in bed and I'm like, oh, I should have put on hand cream, it's right next to me, so I don't have to get up again. All of these are great affordable ways to practice beauty self-care at home, but if you do feel like you need to bring in a professional, if you feel like your skin is extra dry, if you feel like you're breaking out, if you feel like you just need a little bit of an overhaul, I would say book a facial. And I don't get facials very often. I would say maybe like twice a year minimum, maybe more like once a quarter maximum if I really feel like I need it. But it really is amazing when you get a professional all up in your face to see the results on the other side. So if you are new to the concept of facials, I really recommend Glow Bar. They have a Hoboken location. They have lots of locations in New York City and all across the country. The reason I like them is because they do a discount for your first appointment, and it's also really affordable. It's like a 30-minute facial, and I think the price is $75 if it's not your first time, if you're like just booking a regular session. Super, super affordable. They have you fill out a questionnaire before you go in. You disclose your skin issues, what you are kind of looking for as a result of your facial. And I have had really good experiences every time I've booked through Glow Bar. However, if you're willing to spend a little bit more money, there are two spas in New York City that I wanted to recommend. One is Tracy Martin and the other is Joanna Vargas. I have gotten facials at both of these places, and it is so relaxed. Like you just leave feeling like 10 pounds lighter, and I'm not even just saying that. I absolutely love when I'm able to get a facial from anyone who works at one of these spas, just because it's like a real craft, you know what I mean? Like it's taken very seriously. You always feel like you're in good hands. It's very relaxing. So those are the two that I would recommend, especially if you have any like big events coming up. Maybe you do have weddings or bridal showers or photo shoots or who knows what that you just want to look and feel your best for, and you're willing to put some money in there. I do feel like a winter facial can make me feel like a whole other person. Okay, moving right along. The next category I want to talk about is just being fully stocked for when you're not feeling well. And I say this as someone who, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I was unfortunately sick last week. I came back from Nora's Bachelorette and I had this horrible hacking cough that just would not go away. It almost just came out again. But anyway, I was so grateful that I already had a bunch of the core like things that make me feel better when I'm sick items on hand. So if you have some time this week, time for a Target run or a CVS run, or add it to your grocery list, whatever you need to do, here are a few things that for me are just so helpful to have on hand and stock up on now, so that if you are actually sick, you don't have to make a special trip or leave your house when you're not feeling well. Okay, things like Emergency that you can pour into your water and your drinks, Dayquil and NyQuil. These are kind of just standard, good to have around. So Zicam makes this product called a Rapid Melt, and it's basically, it kind of looks like Tums, but it dissolves in your mouth when you put it in. You're actually supposed to take these at the first sign of a cold. I have actually been taking these for years, and I do feel like it's helped reduce my symptoms personally. All of this is me speaking from my own experience, by the way. As you very well know, I am not a doctor of any kind, so take it all with a grain of salt. This is just meant to be for fun and something that I personally do and enjoy. Extra tissues when your nose is running and you're out of tissues and you're like, what are my options? My sweatshirt sleeve, paper towels, toilet paper, like nothing is really a good backup to tissues. So just having extra tissues on hand, always good. Having cough drops on hand, obviously. And I want to clarify, having cough drops that you don't hate, because there's nothing worse than being like, okay, I think I officially need a cough drop. You have made that decision, you commit, you go to open your medicine cabinet and you're like, why do I only have like, I'm making this up, but why do I only have the coconut lime cough drops? You know, like just get something standard, get cherry, get strawberry, get honey. I can't get honey because I'm allergic, but obviously honey makes sense in a cough drop. Okay, and then on a similar note, if you are at the grocery store, also grab a couple of items that you can keep on hand that will be good for at minimum a few weeks, but ideally that you can just have even in your freezer too. One thing that I really like about Trader Joe's when I go is that their soups, I feel like the dates on them are usually about a month out from the time I buy them. So even if I don't use them that first week that I go shopping, I can keep them in my fridge and know that it's just so easy to like dump in a pot and reheat whenever I do need one. So my favorite soup from Trader Joe's is the tomato feta. I'm sure I've mentioned that on here before. They also have a lobster bisque that I believe is like a more wintry one that they do. I have also had the chicken noodle. That one's good too. So I like to have a couple of these in the fridge. Also, if you guys know Rayo's, they make pasta sauce, but they also make soups. So if you want to skip the refrigerated thing altogether and just stock up on some of their cans, actually, theirs come in a jar. Theirs come in like a clear jar, but they're pretty good too. And then also just stocking up on a ton of different frozen snacks that are easy for you to reheat either in like the microwave or the air fryer or just throw on the stovetop. So a couple of things that come to mind for me are like the shrimp gyoza dumplings from Trader Joe's, the pork shumai from Trader Joe's. They also have a bunch of flatbreads, and obviously you can find all of these different items at any grocery store. I'm just like trying to list a few specific examples while I have them in my head. Okay, so there you go. That is your stock up to keep in mind for the next time you are out at a drugstore, or if you want to add it all into one just general winter preparedness grocery trip. It always makes me feel better and more prepared when I have stuff like this on hand, especially from this kind of critical, like January through March true winter that I find myself in, at least here in the Northeast. Okay, next up is finding the right winter clothing, aka making sure you have things in your closet that will actually keep you warm when you step outside of your house so that you're not tempted to constantly cancel plans or not make plans in the first place, because then you start thinking, when I leave the house, though, it's going to be this temperature at this time, so I'm going to be freezing. And if I have to walk from this subway to that thing, and then I'm going to be cold, and we just don't want to have to worry about any of that. Just because it's winter doesn't mean we need to stop socializing. First, you want to think about finding the right outerwear for where you live in your area. So if you live in a place with like harsh winters, sub-zero temperatures, it snows a lot, as much as you might want like a dainty, cute jacket, you're going to need something heavy duty to make sure that you are warm when you leave the house. So you're probably going to look for something durable, maybe something waterproof like a parka or a puffer jacket. If you live somewhere with more of a mild winter, you might be okay with something like a thick trench coat or a long line coat, something that will still keep you warm and look stylish, but that doesn't necessarily have to be tundra approved. Also, think about your job and your lifestyle. In theory, I am a self employed person who works from home, but I also work in the fashion and beauty industry. So I'm often taking meetings in the city, going to events. I would like to still look put together when I leave the house. So even though I have a parka jacket for when it gets really cold, also having nicer options that are suitable for work environments, suitable for events and things like that are important for me to think about as well. So maybe something you want to think about too. And then I also think fit and silhouette is a big thing that's not talked about as much when it comes to winter coats, because I feel like the fixation is always on warmth. But I am someone who takes like proportion and styling into account when I get dressed. And for me, I don't want to leave the house looking just like a pile of a coat. You know what I mean? I want there to still be ideally some shape to the jacket, even if it is a parka, even if it is heavy duty. I actually bought the Aritzia Super Puff last year and I really liked it, but I ended up returning it for the cropped Super Puff because even though the other jacket was a bit longer and it fit probably where it should have, I just realized I didn't like that cut as much on me. So I went for the cropped one. It still keeps me pretty warm. It does not cover my butt, but that's okay because I have other jackets that do that. But I am more inclined to wear that jacket now because I feel like it looks cuter. So I know I shouted out some names of jackets while I was talking just now, but I actually did publish a blog post this past week about the best types of winter coats. And my top 7 are the parka, the faux fur, the puffer, the shacket, the trench style coat, the biker jacket, and the long line coat. So if you want to read more details and see some of my current shopping picks for all of those items, I will link the blog post in the show notes that you can check out and peruse more after this episode. I also think it's helpful to just make a mental note when you find a good winter outfit combination that works for you, that truly keeps you warm. And one that worked really well for me that I wore last month to my friend Jake's 30th birthday party was actually my leather pants from Abercrombie. I will link the ones that I have in the show notes. I wore those with a pair of fleece line tights underneath and with tall boots. Because those leather pants are a bit more boot cut, they flare out. I was able to put on underneath a pair of slim tall boots. So I was fully covered from, the waist down. Even when the wind picked up, it was like I had minimum 2, maximum 3 layers covering me, like the pants and the fleece line tights covering me all the way down to my knees. And then from my knee down, I also had the added layer of the boots. I was completely fine. And this was on a particularly chilly December night. but I didn't want to cancel my plans. I didn't want to miss my friend's birthday. So that goes in the like winter outfit vault of combinations that I know work for days where it's really cold, but I still have plans. Also, shout out to Uniqlo for inventing heat tech. That stuff honestly is so good. I personally like the long sleeve t-shirts. I feel like those are so simple, but they're such great layering pieces. I even have purchased the heat tech that are like, it basically just feels like a t-shirt. It's not even that thick, in addition to the ones with the fleece lined heat tech built in that really do keep me warm. So heat tech tops and, like I just mentioned, those fleece lined tights, and you can get those from Uniqlo. You can also get them on Amazon. I previously have gotten some on Urban Outfitters. So it really just comes down to your preference, but there are options out there, people. So let's remember to use them. And by people, I am mainly talking to myself. Next on the list is finding ways to get outside that don't make you miserable. Because even though it can be cold and it does get dark earlier, it's still so important to get some fresh air, get out and about, and just, move yourself from the confines of your home. And this can be easier said than done, especially if you commute to an office and you feel like you don't get to see the sun too much during the winter months. But even finding pockets of like 5 or 10 minutes where you can get outside, put your face in front of the sun, and breathe in some of that very crisp, albeit January or February air, it really can make such a big difference. I barely left the house all last week while I wasn't feeling well, and I could feel it reflected in the fact that I was missing my sun exposure. And even when there's not that much sun out there, I was just missing the fact that I wasn't outside. I could just feel it in my body and I could just tell. A couple of ideas here. You could meet up with a friend for a morning coffee before work. You could make plans to get outside for your lunch break, even if it's for 5 minutes after lunch, just to quickly digest your meal and like take a lap around the block. On the weekends, you could make daytime plans with friends. This is obviously nice because you can have a daytime plan and then go home and cozy up in the evening. If you're less inclined to go out while it's not just cold, but also dark, totally understand. You could do brunch, you could go to a museum, you could make a plan to visit a part of a neighborhood that you've never explored before, and obviously you're probably going to be popping in and out of different places, but at least you're getting out there, seeing people, and being social. I am also a huge fan of a podcast walk. Again, it doesn't even have to be that long. It could be 10 or 15 minutes during the day. For me with a podcast, I always feel like I have something to look forward to and I kind of have people keeping me company, so to speak, when I'm out on my walk. It's very on demand, but if you also can plan ahead or people who don't mind a spontaneous phone call, you could also talk on the phone with a friend or FaceTime someone. And honestly, just doing that while you're outside and going on your walk is like a double boost of serotonin because you're getting outside, you're getting that fresh air, and you're either listening to content that you love or you're getting to connect with someone who you care about. Okay, another thing I think is so important is to romanticize the cozy nights in. As much as I do think it's important to leave the house and try to make an effort, even when it's cold and it's dark and we don't really want to, I do think that getting cozy and romanticizing the time that is spent indoors and just acknowledging that this is winter. Like, this is the season we're living in. We don't need to pretend that it's summer. We can kind of embrace where we're at right now, which might mean just a slower pace. It might mean only one social gathering a week instead of 2 or 3. It might mean staying in on a Saturday night. Maybe you participated in like dry January this year. Maybe you just naturally like to stay in more. And whatever the case is, I really feel like leaning in to the vibes of just being inside, kind of nesting in a sense, and just really sinking into your space is something that I personally am always so grateful for and is something that over the years I have really been looking forward to. One thing that I love to do on a night in is to read. And I did write down 3 books that I read last year that I feel like are the perfect book to curl up under a blanket with, with a cup of hot chocolate or tea or coffee or whatever you want to drink. And these are all kind of what I would call like cozy mysteries. They're not too scary, so they're not going to like give you nightmares or anything, but I also think the characters are really interesting and the plot lines are there. So one is The Cloisters, another is Society of Lies, and the last one is The Midnight Feast. I will link all of these in the show notes if you're interested in checking any of them out. I actually read all 3 of these last fall, and I feel like they would have equally been great winter books as well. Another thing is candlelight, and yes, that is a cliche. Light a candle, stay cozy, but It works for a reason, okay? It's cliche because it's true. If you're looking for a fancy candle to get you through the next few weeks, look no further than Hotel Lobby Candle. I am sure I've spoken about this brand on the podcast before. If not, I know I have on YouTube and on Instagram. This is Lindsay Silberman's brand, and every candle they make smells amazing, truly. Like, it's really hard to go wrong. Some of their more wintry scents that I love are New York, Paris, Holiday, Aspen. There are plenty of descriptions of the different scents on their website, so definitely check them out. I will link it in the show notes. But also, we don't discriminate against candles in this household. If you want your $5 Home Goods or Target candle and you want that lit and just next to you while you're reading or watching a cozy movie, by all means, be my guest. I don't know, there's something kind of romantic and just really cozy about it all. And also setting the tone in terms of your wardrobe, treat yourself to a cozy, oversized sweat set. I absolutely love fashion, but at the same time, there's something so satisfying about slipping into basically just wearing some version of a blanket on your body. That's the best way to explain it. And you can obviously find options, though, that are cuter than a Snuggie. And I have two brands to recommend if you're in the market for a new cozy sweatsuit to wear at home. One is a little bit more high end and one is more affordable. So the higher end option is Luxome. This is truly some of the softest fabric that I've ever felt in my entire life. I have met the founder of this brand twice. I've gone to events that they've hosted in New York City. I do personally own a sweatsuit of theirs, and there is just something about getting into it that makes me so happy. And this fabric that they use, it even gets softer the more you wear and wash it. And you know, when it is that lived in fabric, but the quality still stays the same, like that is the ultimate merging of something that is comfortable and something that is quality. And I can't recommend this brand enough. Really, some of the softest fabrics on planet Earth, like hands down. But if you're on a bit of a budget, or also if you haven't really leaned into the full body sweatsuit situation in a really long time and you want to test it out before you invest in something more like the Luxome brand, I just recently bought one from Gap and I'm obsessed with it. It is so cozy. It's so good. I ended up getting the crew neck sweatshirt and then the jogger sweatpants. And the reason I got the jogger sweatpants is some sweatpants obviously have a wider leg at the bottom of them. I got the joggers so that if I wear taller socks and the joggers, that there isn't really that gap. If, say, that Gap, I just said that the sweatsuit is from the Gap. Do you get my joke? I read that book, Good Material, and now I think I'm a comedian. It's fine. Anyway, so there isn't a gap between like my sock and my leg if I want to wear that sweatsuit. And if I decide, okay, I want to go get my 5 to 10 minutes of sunshine, I'm going to throw on my parka on top of this and go for a quick walk. That way my ankles aren't freezing because the wind isn't like whipping through there. It's kind of all like sealed together, if that makes sense. And I just got this matching sweat set in burgundy. However, this comes in lots of colors, and last I checked, it was on sale. So I will also drop those links in the show notes if you're in need. And I also sized up to make it even cozier. My next bullet point on this list is a bit of a note, but also kind of a bit of a question for you guys, because I remember at the end of last year, I started seeing all of this stuff pop up about the winter arc. And I watched a couple of videos about this. I listened to a few podcast episodes about this. The concept being that during your winter arc is like a 3-month period where you kind of lock in and get things done and glow up. And I remember seeing this talked about. Sorry, I think I just found like a sesame seed on my desk. That's so random. I remember seeing this talked about at the end of last year, and I didn't really understand why we were trying to do the winter arc in the last quarter of the year. I think some people were saying it was to get ahead of your 2025 goals, but for me, the first quarter of the year is always when the winter arc is. And this is the time where you really do lock in, you commit to your goals, you kind of start off on a strong note. This to me is what the top of the year energy is all about, though. I mean, I feel like this is really hard to do in December when it is the holiday season and you probably have a lot of social plans or you're traveling and you're kind of off your routine more so than you usually are. So I was just curious if you guys saw that about the winter arc, if you feel like you have a winter arc, or if you've participated, if you preferred doing it towards the end of the year to get prepared for the start of the year, or if you feel like the first 3 months of the year are the winter arc and the opportunity for you to, make fewer plans and really like go after your goals, get back on your routines, get into your fitness, whatever it is that you wanted to do during this time. I'm just so curious because I remembered people posting about this and I kept thinking, like, but that's what January through March is for. And you guys, I'm about to be so on my winter arc also because the path is about to get shut down for an entire month. The path is going to be shut down from January 30th through February 25th. And if I'm being totally honest, my expectation is that it will take even longer than that for them to reopen it. So I have a great excuse to say no to plans if I don't want to do something. And the last thing on my list, which I think is the perfect way to wrap our winter survival guide, is something that is also really good to do just when you feel like you're a little bit tired of your day-to-day routine, or maybe you're going through a tougher time, or maybe you just really want a change of pace and a change of scenery, and that is to plan a trip to look forward to. Now, I personally have girl bossed a little too close to the sun here because I actually have a lot of trips on the calendar for this year, so I'm good. I've done this already. But when I say plan a trip somewhere, honestly, any change of scenery can make such a big difference. Even if you decide to book one overnight at a hotel just to, like I said, switch it up, just get in a new space. Or maybe you can do a long weekend and you and a couple of friends can rent a cozy cabin near where you live. I like to do this with the Catskills. I actually have 2 trips to the Catskills planned in the next few weeks. So, like I said, I don't really need to be planning any more trips, but obviously that won't stop me from doing so in the back of my head. But obviously, the ultimate hack is to plan a trip somewhere warm. Andrew and I have been lucky to plan a couple of trips like this in our lives. And every time we do, I'm like, we should do this more. Like, I feel like the smartest person in the entire world that I thought to book myself this trip to this warm place in the middle of March or at the beginning of January. Last year for our honeymoon, we were in Auckland in January and it was 80 degrees there. And I remembered checking the weather in New York and just feeling truly better than everyone else. Like, oh my God, why doesn't everyone think to do this all the time? And obviously people do and they book trips and stuff. But for some reason, it just felt like the ultimate life hack. And I was like, I need to remember to do this in the future. Also, a few years ago, we booked a few days at a resort in the Dominican Republic in March. And I remember they had to de-ice the plane before we left. And just the thought of that got me so shivery and like was making me so glad that we had made plans to get the heck out of there. And you don't even have to go for a long time. I mean, obviously, being in the US, we are so lucky to be close to the Caribbean. I think we did 5 days, 4 nights in the Dominican Republic. So we were only gone from like a Wednesday to a Sunday. I am also going to Florida for 3 days in February, which I'm literally so excited for. I'm sure I'll talk more about that as I get into the month. But if you need any ideas or you want to brainstorm, I highly recommend just putting on some travel vlogs on YouTube. Like, type in a destination you're interested in and see what videos come up for it because you could get some really good ideas. Andrew and I also like to rewatch old seasons of The Amazing Race. We just started, what was it, season 14 or 15 this past weekend. And that watching that actually prompted me to make a spreadsheet for us. And this might actually be helpful if you feel like you have a lot of ideas for where you want to go, but you want help kind of prioritizing in terms of how much time off you have, how much money you actually want to spend, and how important certain destinations are for you to go to versus like what's convenient. Okay, so I just pulled up the spreadsheet that we made this weekend. This is like so excessive now that I'm looking at it. But again, it's actually really helpful. I did this just so I can see what the priorities are. So what I did was I made a few columns in this spreadsheet. I put in either country or state in the first column. I made a priority column in the second column. So I just said, is this high priority, medium priority, or low priority? In the next column, I put the length of the trip. Like, is it a week or less? Would it be 1 to 2 weeks or is it 2+ weeks? And by the way, this is for my entire lifetime. This is not for like this year, because obviously then I would be eating up the entire year just with travel. I also put time of year, and then I put some notes in terms of like if there was a country, if there were specific cities or places within that country we really wanted to prioritize visiting. And this to me is just so helpful because, especially for Andrew and I planning trips together, I can look at this and say, hey, we have a week that we can take, this fall, and we can be gone for 6 days, call it. I can come to this spreadsheet and sort through and look for anything that says fall or winter a week or less. Maybe it's not the highest priority, like the place we want to go the most, but maybe it's kind of convenient. We can find a way to make it work and we can get that trip actually booked and on the agenda. This way, I feel like we can just be really intentional about any travel that we plan to do. We can look into it based on budget, on distance, on how much time we have, and make decisions from there. And I really do want to prioritize travel. I just still feel like there's so much of the world that I haven't seen yet. And I want to do all 50 states. I'm at 29 right now, which is pretty good considering I'm 30 years old. And I don't know, I just always, every time I travel, I get so re-inspired. I meet new people. I challenge myself in ways that I didn't really know I could previously. And it really just puts that inspiration back into me and gives me a lot of perspective and also just appreciation of what I do have and where I come from, just as much as I learn to appreciate the other cultures and countries that I'm able to visit. Okay, so to recap before we head out, beauty swaps for winter. Think about creating at home spa moments, thicker products, nourishing products, potentially booking facials and things like that. Doing a full on stock up of any cold and cough essentials, tissues, and frozen foods so you don't have to run out if you're sick. Finding the right winter clothing that makes the most sense for you, thinking about where you live, your lifestyle, and clothes that you like to wear. Also, investing in items like heat tech to stay warm. Finding ways to get outside that don't make you miserable, like grabbing a morning coffee or taking a walk on your lunch break. Romanticizing nights in, entering your winter arc and having fewer plans, and also planning something to look forward to, like a trip. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I wish you a warm and cozy winter as we get through the trenches of the next few weeks ahead. And as a reminder, you can support Create and Consume for free by doing any of the following. You can leave Apple and Spotify ratings and reviews. You can like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you're watching this episode on YouTube. You can follow along at Create and Consume Pod on Instagram and TikTok. You could send this episode to a friend who might enjoy it. And as always, don't forget to check out createandconsumepodcast.com for episode recaps and more. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.